Hello and welcome back. My name is Kabira and this is my YouTube channel, Kabira Speaks. So my name is Kabira and I'm codependent. Like many people are. Is this too much? Might be. I realized maybe a year ago that I am codependent. So codependency is something that's very misunderstood. I've talked about it a little bit on this channel. I'm just going to give you a quick basic definition of it. So people often mistake codependency for enabling. That's because codependence, oh my God, I just need to get this button on really quick before I can focus. Codependency is often confused with enabling because when codependency was first recognized, it was with people who were in relationships with people who either were drug users or alcoholics. And then the codependent partner would be enabling the relationship. So they are like closely linked, but they're not the same thing. Codependency for me would be staying in relationships that do not serve me, that are bad for me. Not just romantic relationships, but friendships too. Codependency for me means putting all of my self into the relationship so that that person won't leave. That person won't leave me. So I'll do whatever the other person wants to do, whatever they say. They say jump, I say how high. That's what I'm like in relationships. Relationships are really difficult for me for that reason. So I started going to codependency meetings, and that's what this video is about. So let me just tell you, first of all, the dangers of being codependent. It's not a good thing. It's not just a partnership where you both are like really all in for each other and are 150%. That's not what it is. Codependencies actually can be very selfish, because the reason I do those things, the reason I bend over backwards 12 times over for other people, it's not because I want to. It's actually built up resentment inside me. It's because I'm terrified of abandonment and being left and being forgotten and left behind. So the dangers of codependency. First of all, I stayed in a relationship with someone who raped me. He raped me before we were dating, and then he moved into my house, and then we dated for the next 2 years. And I stayed and I stayed and I stayed. I was traumatized. I was in like terrible pain all the time. I wanted to die. I was 100 pounds. It was awful. But I stayed and stayed. And when he broke up with me, I was devastated. That's something that's a titch different, because that is a trauma bond, which I'll cover that in a different day. But is a good indicator of my codependency also. I couldn't even walk away from someone who hurt me so badly. Like, this person like ruined my life, and I allowed him to move into my home. I didn't mean to get so serious so fast, but that incident impacted my life so much. It's hard for me not to bring it up, because it's really spread like poison throughout. So that was the big one. But the other thing is, at the beginning of this year, I was still living with my ex-boyfriend. I didn't move into this apartment until February 28th. I had lived with my ex-boyfriend for like a year and a half. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we got an apartment together. Broke up almost immediately. So if you recall, I'm sure you do, the beginning of the pandemic was like, not just pandemic scare, but also that's when the Black Lives Matter movement really took off. That's also when I found out that the person who had assaulted me had assaulted someone else. So that's when I reported it. So it was a lot of turmoil in my life. And the person I was dating was very unsupportive of all of those things. And I was miserable. You know, looking back on some of the vlogs I did, like just the day in the life type vlogs, I was so unhappy. Right away, as soon as we moved in, I was so unhappy. Not only were those like the big things in the world going on that we disagreed on, I also just didn't like, I sometimes liked, I did enjoy his company, but also he refused to clean up after himself. So I had to do all of the cleaning in the house. And I like can't focus in spaces that aren't clean and organized. So I really had no choice but to do all of the household chores. Even though I begged and begged and begged for him to do them. But the point is, I stayed at that apartment for way, way, way too long. And before that, I stayed in that relationship for way, way, way too long. This person broke up with me like a ton. And every time he broke up with me, devastated. Every time he called or texted me back, immediately. I'm not a good snapper. I knew it wasn't going to be a good one. Just imagine a better snap than that. My hands are kind of sweaty. I would immediately just go back into the relationship. And it was just a cycle of love and withdrawing that love. Love and withdrawing that love and attention and affection. And I was deeply unhappy, but I could not leave. When we would have fights, I would always apologize because I just wanted to get over the conflict. Oh, that's another thing about codependency. You're very conflict avoidant, because to introduce conflict or to express your own wants and needs might bring a conflict, which might result in separation, which we cannot have because it makes you feel so scared and awful and ashamed. People who are codependent, I'm sorry if this is like all over the place. I'm kind of running a little late, but it's the 12 days of cab. I forgot to mention that. I'm doing it. Oh God, it's my credit card company. Leave me alone. They bullies. Anyway, what was I saying? I am running a titch. Now my phone's about to, this is a typical day for me. This is just a typical day. You're gonna tell me I don't have ADHD? Anyway, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? I don't remember. Didn't like living with my ex, let's just say that. But even still, took me a long time to get out. And when I was still about to get out, like about to leave that apartment with him, I had like several opportunities to go, and I always found reasons not to. But finally, I'm in this apartment, which makes me so, so happy. I love living alone. But yeah, that whole experience where I stayed with my ex for that long was really eye-opening to me. And that's when I started going to codependency meetings after I had moved out of my apartment with my ex-boyfriend. So let me tell you about what a codependency meeting is like. It's like AA. And you might think it's like weird or nutty of me to go to a meeting like that. Trust me, it's not. I need the help. I really do. Like I said, relationships are very hard for me. They send me into a tizzy, into a spiral when someone's text sounds off, or if I think someone's mad at me, or if I want to do something. It's really hard for me to ask someone to spend time with me. It's very hard for me to ask for anything at all. And I cannot stand that. I can't stand my passiveness. And it frustrates me. It frustrates other people sometimes. And I really want to work through it. I think trauma therapy, codependency meetings, and maybe like assertiveness training eventually. Like intellectually, I understand why I am the way I am. But to go through those steps and to make the changes, well, that's going to take me my whole life pretty much. That's okay. I'm definitely in a better place than I was. But anyway, this is what a codependency meeting is like. I've only been to them online. I don't really see myself going to one in person. Maybe, but I like doing it online. Honestly, like the pandemic brought so many changes to how we do things. And that's one of the good things, like being able to do things on Zoom or Teams or what have you. Don't you love this belt? I got it at Goodwill. And I got this dress from Foreman Mills. It's a commercial, if you wonder why I did that. Yeah, so to find a codependency meeting, I just Google codependency meetings near me. That'll bring up the CODA website. Then I go to, you can find meetings in person that are near you. Just like AA, they have meetings all day, every single day, because people need this stuff. They really do. I do. I go to the online meetings. So there's a whole tab for online. And then you don't have to go to one that's necessarily in your area. You can separate it by language. You can separate it by like women only, men only, LGBTQIA. There's lots of different groups you can get in. I haven't picked a group yet. I've kind of done a smattering of them, kind of just gotten my feet wet, but I have really learned from going to those meetings. So some of them are very traditional, just like AA can be, and I like that. I like it's not rigid. Well, it's somewhat rigid. They have rules, okay? And this is something that's important because I didn't understand the rules necessarily when my very first meeting. I think I might have joined a few minutes late, shocker. But the rules, everyone can have the opportunity to speak, but you have a short window. So someone in the group, it's entirely run by the people. Someone in the group will be the timekeeper, and they take this job very seriously because it's important that everyone has the same amount of time to speak. So you'll share your piece. Like I might have said, I've lived with my ex-boyfriend who drives me crazy and doesn't understand me and doesn't love me, but I can't leave and it's terrible and I'm unhappy. And I could have said that if I had been going during those times. But no one's going to give me advice. It's just a share, and then it's the next person's turn. It's a share and the next person. And that might not seem that helpful, but it actually is because you learn through people's struggles and you learn through people's triumphs. I was floored by some of the things I've heard. Like, people stay in awful, awful relationships and awful situations, and I'm not judging them for it, because I obviously have done the same exact thing. But it just really tells you, like, that's why we need to do this. That's why we need to figure things out so that we can have healthy relationships. Because isn't that the ultimate goal? It's my ultimate goal. Always. That's what I want. I want to fall in love. I want really good friends. I want to have a family. I want to have good work relationships with I want to have good relationships with my colleagues. And at this point in my life, all of that is just so difficult because I'm just paralyzed by fear of abandonment all the time and being, you know, a fawning, codependent person. So, yeah, that's what the meetings are like. They're about an hour long. At the end of the meeting, they might have like a little social hour or a section where the rules are loosened. And in that case, people can give you advice. They can respond to your share. Another type of meeting, it's not focused as much on the shares, but it's more focused on reading and education. Like, so they might read a book about codependency or an article from a doctor or something like that. Also very good stuff to know. And it's just good to be around other people who understand. Because sometimes when I tell people, like, oh yeah, I lived with my boyfriend for this amount of time and we were both unhappy and I stayed and he was a Republican, even though I didn't know he was. People act like I am crazy. Like, why didn't you just walk away? Because it's not that easy. Every fiber in this body tells me that I need to, for my own safety and protection, that I need to merge with somebody else. And that I can't stand on my own 2 feet. That's what my body tells me. And I have to learn to I have to unlearn that. And like I said, it's gonna take some time, but I got the time, and it's definitely worth it for me, because I don't know, I have a little thing going right now, and I want to have a healthy and happy relationship with this person. So, and yeah, I think that's it. I'm so sorry this was like all over the place today, but that's just how it is sometimes. But like I said, it's 12 days of CAB. I'm doing a video every day for the next 12 days until Christmas. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm just going to pick one. I got so organized last night. I made a big list of like videos I want to make on YouTube, videos I want to make on TikTok. Anything on TikTok I can transfer to like an Instagram reel. And yeah, I'm just trying to be more consistent. The medicine's helping me, the medicine I have for my bipolar disorder. And that's a topic for another day. And it is 12:04. I hope that this video was interesting and not too, you know, I'm sure it was. If it wasn't, you wouldn't still be here. We're 15 minutes in. Okay, I really do have to go to work though. So I'll talk to you tomorrow, and I love you so much. Bye.